I don't need to be humanized by the white man, the imaginary white man. I know that I am a human, and this is what we have to, you have to force your humanity, you know, and where your enemy gets to a point where they cannot deny your humanity because you'll beat the hell out of them. They can't do it. And that's what, you know, has to happen right now. The West has to get a whipping. Look, the Arabic diaspora populations by the beginning of the 2000s, especially in Europe and Canada and Australia and what have you, were getting to a numerical point where regular day-to-day life means that they were going to be integrated, going to be married with, you know, cross-married with so many other people in positions of culture and arts and politics and everything, that it was a threat to Zionists. And that is why the Zionists and the CIA ordered the Saudis, intelligence, and the quote-unquote Al-Qaeda, the chameleon, to deliver us September 11. Okay. And from, you know, and you had a decade of exclusion of the Arabic and Muslim community and a delay of their natural integration. And when that died out, the effect of that, again, the CIA and the Mossad and so on moved their Wahhabi death squads and brought us ISIS and the death fields and the slave markets in Libya, Syria, Iraq, and again delayed the integration of the Arabic and Muslim diasporas. Another decade. And now today, that is dying out. What we see right now is the Israelis and the Americans, the West in general, trying to revive this, this ideal Arab, this ideal Muslim that they wanted to create as a scarecrow against not only our people here, but also the integration of the diasporas. And it's not working. It's not working for the vast majority of people. They're seeing the actual monster devouring children live on television that is called Israel. And then to play pretend Arab, pretend Semite, okay? Claim that Europeans are the Judeo-Christian civilization. I'm like, what the hell, mofo? The Judeo-Christian Muslim civilization is me and my people.
Okay, so hello everyone. We are today back with Laith Marouf, and we are going to discuss a bit about, well, we will extend our discussion from last time, but I guess we hope that you can update us a bit on the whole situation in your region, Laith. And before we go into the deeper issues, I would just wanted to ask you what your current assessment is of the whole situation over there, and in particular, what is your evaluation of the recent Hezbollah retaliation?
I mean, the recent Hezbollah retaliation clearly was designed to be very precise as a retaliation for the assassination of Fuad Shukr, the commander-in-chief of Hezbollah's military wing, the Islamic Resistance in Lebanon. And that was made clear in the speech of Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah right after the same day. And he indicated that they, after the assassination of Shukr, were looking at all the parts of the Israeli apparatuses that participated in this assassination and set the targets to actually fit that analysis, and clearly that's what they delivered on. They hit the main base of the Amman, the military intelligence of the Zionist colony, and they hit the main air base that directs all the activities of the Israeli Air Force. That's along with 11 bases that are on the border and all the air defense systems that were kind of distracted by the wave of 340 missiles and cheap drones that distracted them for the advanced drone to reach those main targets. So if we look at it from that perspective, it was a very successful response. It had the Israelis failed in their intelligence assessment of not only predicting where the targets are going to be, what are going to be hit, but also preempting them or hitting anything significant when they attacked Lebanon that day as the response was coming. And they were not able to destroy the launchers and the hangars for the drones during the actual hour and a half of military activities that was happening. So they failed militarily, intelligence-wise, and so on. Now, if somebody was hoping that we will see a full war by Hezbollah on the Zionists and a breakout of regional war and vengeance and so forth, people that have that, in their head, they may feel disappointed. But we're still also waiting, of course, for the Yemeni response for the attacks on Hodeidah. We're also still waiting for the response of Iran for the assassination of Ismail Haniyeh and Tehran. And when we put all that in context, and the fact that all the military and intelligence apparatuses of the whole empire ruled from the sea have been on the highest alert for a month now, with all their assets on the ground, not only unable to stop Hezbollah from exacting its revenge, but also wasting all these resources and media and everything. The whole empire is now stretched for a month, and we still haven't seen the responses from Yemen and Iran. And once those come, we'll see also those who are egging for a full-out war with millions of martyrs across the region may have their day, because we still want to see what Israel does now in response to Hezbollah's attack. We still want to have to see what Iran does, what Yemen does, and how the West responds to that, and how Israel responds to that. This is a long war. I started, 10 months ago when this war started, I told everybody that this is a war that could take a year, two, maybe more. This is an anti-colonial war. This is a decolonization war. The only examples that you have for that are Algeria, Angola, Vietnam. These are long, protracted battles against empires that are 10 times stronger than the indigenous populations, that have resources that are beyond them. And that's the only way you can design an anti-colonial battle. And so the blood is coming. Nobody needs to rush it.
What's your sense of public opinion in, in Lebanon, obviously, but more broadly? I'm sure that there's not very good public opinion research. I'm sure governments in the region wouldn't want necessarily to have research carried out that shows massive public opposition to their own policies. But how do you get a sense, or how do you get knowledge of the state of public opinion in the region? Because, of course, that's going to be a major influence on what governments there do.
Look, even before the genocide started, There was surveys of much of the Arabic world done by, Western imperialist survey companies. And those numbers show us, even in places like Saudi occupied Arabia, the 98% of the population stands for the liberation of Palestine, don't acknowledge the existence of Israel as a Zionist colony. So, if you take that as an example, this is the most suppressed population in the whole Arabic world that has lived now 100 and somewhat years of Saudi Wahhabi cult by force, education and manipulation and propaganda and physical abuse to be what they are, and you still have this. So what would be the opinion in the rest of the Arabic world? Clearly, the vast majority, if not the absolute majority, if not equal to what the Saudi, quote unquote population, the Arabic population in Saudi kingdom, they can be less than that. And here in the streets in Lebanon, I can tell you, I have never seen this much unity in terms of opinion on the street. Of course, there is all the propaganda machine that is being funded by the Saudis and the Qataris and the Emiratis and the Kuwaitis and the Americans and the British and the Germans that are producing all this hate to resistance, but there is no intake to that. I think it's been very huge shifts even in Lebanon here when we talk about, let's say, there was, the Phalange in Lebanon, the Christian supremacists that worked with the Zionists and committed the massacres in Sabra and Shatila in the 1980s and so forth. So you'd think, let's say, if you look at this Christian population, the Maronite Christian population specifically, even them, there's a huge shift in opinion. And one of the reasons that populations that are over propagandized and segregated, like the Maronites here in Lebanon, have changed in their opinion, is because they've been seeing what the Palestinians have been doing, resisting inside their own country, inside Gaza, inside the West Bank, and what they're giving. So whatever there was from the Civil War propaganda that fed into the anti-Palestinian sentiments within specifically the Maronite population is now dissipating. Okay, there's no more Palestinian in the street of Lebanon that is fighting, when carrying arms. There's a Palestinian in Gaza, in the West Bank, that is resisting genocide and showing the most valiant, heroic actions that humanity has seen filmed, okay? In modern history, you have not seen these things. So the truth on the ground is changing whole populations, and I think the Kata'ib, the Phalange, and the Lebanese forces are having a hard time within their own, holdouts, even to mobilize against the Palestinian people here in Lebanon, or the resistance in general.
Yeah, and you said that I saw one of your other interviews, and I remember you said something like a cotton ball, the tactic of the cotton ball, and sometimes I also hear the boiling the frog, the idea that you take the long strategy. I remember this talking with Peter about I don't know why Iran is not reacting more violently back to the West, and I remember saying to Peter, don't forget that these are cultures from Asia who and just like China, they play the long chess game. They're not like short-term thinkers like in the West. But I do understand the sentiment among a lot of people that they want to see so they want to see Israel getting a bloody nose, so to speak. Okay, the bully will not stop until it gets a bloody nose, and I still think that is the case. They're completely unhinged. They're crazy, and what you said in one of your interviews as well is that nobody is going to save people in West Asia unless they free themselves. And how do you see that happening, Laith, going forward? Do you see that there the possibility is there? How do you see that happening?
Yeah, I mean, in my mind, I haven't also changed since October 7th. The liberation of Palestine is imminent. Okay, this war is the war of liberation of Palestine as a whole. Okay, it's not. It started as a operation to capture Israeli soldiers, to exchange them for the thousands of Palestinian prisoners of war that are rotting in Israeli dungeons. But now it has morphed into the complete liberation war. So I see this imminent. And the only thing that will stop this imminent liberation, an end of the Zionist colony, is a nuclear holocaust, a nuclear war. And I, say this, and at the same time tell everybody what Bob Marley says: "Have no fear of atomic energy, for none of them can stop the time." Okay, it's that simple. I think if it gets to a nuclear attack, then it will be a world war and all of us will be nuked and Palestine will be liberated still. Okay. This is where it's really strange watching the activists in the West not understanding where they're standing in the course right now of history. Where at what point doing all this Kamala Harris circus when they should be actually carrying arms, preparing themselves for what's coming. This is the war here is gonna be long. I don't think they're gonna use nukes, but if they do, we're all dead. It's not only Palestine that is dead. There's no way around the liberation of Palestine. It's past the point. What Israel has broadcasted to the world for the last 10 months, this nonstop snuff videos, okay, have permeated like all of humanity's subconscious. We all have now seen, imagine us all be watching the ovens baking in Auschwitz on a channel, right? 24 hours, like those fireplace channels that you have on cables. This is what we've been watching. So this is impossible to come back from for the Zionist colony. The issue that is stopping the collapse now is the direct involvement of all of the Western minds, diplomatically, militarily, corporately, media, propaganda, social media. That's the only thing that's saving off the imminent collapse, actually. This is why we're coming back to your first question there about the response of Hezbollah. In a way, no need is there for a full regional war for Israel to collapse. All that is needed is the stopping of direct support by the West. It will collapse immediately within a minute. And this is where the responsibility lies for so-called leftist or progressives or anti-colonialists or anti-imperialists that are in the West. It is in their hand, if they take the risk of true liberation, to end this genocide also. It's not only us on the ground in Palestine that are capable. If there is now, instead of going and carrying a flag, if somebody doesn't want to carry arms, maybe they're too scared, or they would say, I'm calling for violence, you know what? Throw a goddamn shoe at Kamala Harris instead of crying at her, screaming at her. Throw a shoe. Take the risk of the Iraqi journalist that you all glorify, that threw the shoe on Bush. Every Western politician who supports Zionism should have at least a shoe thrown on their face anytime they show their face in public. There's many things that activists in the West can do, but they all require the actual commitment to anti-colonialism, not in speech, but in action.
Well, yeah, that reminds me a little bit of a recent book about, I forget the name, about protest tactics in the Western world, and how, there was this massive intellectual movement that translated into activism and made the kind of role of the activist to go out on the street and speak truth to power. And the belief was that if you got your message out to the people by being in the street, then you can change minds and change policy that way. And the book basically argues that if you look at the track record of this form of political action, it's pretty weak. We haven't seen much effect, and even we've seen the right kind of take that tactic and use it quite effectively, because of course right-wing causes are more popular in the corporate media, and so if you have a protest, you can have that amplified. Whereas if you have a protest for a left-wing cause, you're not going to get any attention, and it's only people on the streets that are going to see you and maybe learn something. But when it comes to like actual organization, there was this report I read about that the Chinese government did of the U.S. in I think the 70s or the 60s, where they analyzed what they were looking at the revolutionary situation in the U.S. and they basically concluded that there was no hope of revolution whatsoever in the U.S. I forget the exact reasoning, but I think a lot of it had to do with the actual organizations that were threatening to the U.S. government were all just liquidated. Their leaders were assassinated. They were infiltrated by the FBI, through the roof. So they basically threw up their hands and said the U.S. is pretty hopeless. But when it comes to actually building an organization, because if you're like a teenager hearing, oh, I should, revolt against the government, I've got guns, that from a I think a traditional leftist perspective would be thought of as voluntarism or adventurism. Like it might make you feel good, but it's not really going to do anything, because individual action only has impact if it's within a much larger organization. So when it comes to organizing, and creating an organization that's actually capable of putting pressure on the US government, for instance, just interrupting military production would be something that the US government would be very concerned about. There's that anecdote of Richard Nixon supposedly saying, he was worried about the protesters breaking through into the White House and lynching him. I don't know if that's true or not, but there are some things that governments care about and worry about, and other things that they can just dismiss, like a protest, because the media won't even cover it and it's not going to change anybody's mind. So do you have any, I don't know, it's kind of a big question to ask, how do you build an organization that is capable of exercising power? But perhaps you could offer some thoughts on that, or provide examples of other organizations that have worked.
Well, I think the immediate example that is working right now is Palestine Action, which are going into Israeli military factories in the UK and destroying them physically, going in with jackhammers and crowbars and destroying the machinery, or destroying the offices and blockading the offices of companies that rent space to the Israeli military factories, or companies that provide other components that go in Israeli. There's an ambulance here. I don't know if it's you could hear it. The point is, these are the most, I think, important movements right now, and I think they were successful in the United States. This week, one of the Elbit factories, I think it's in Massachusetts or something, was shut down just because they were demonstrating every day, blockading the entrances to their factory. So clearly, there's something that could be done, and it is effective. And people that are in Palestine Action, what's special about them is, number one, they have committed and understand that their actions will lead to persecution and prosecution by the state in the UK and the US, who are collaborating and funding and leading the genocide in Gaza. As we can see, they have been successful for a lot of times in the courts in the UK, winning with the argument of stopping a genocide from being committed. So this is the least that activists in the West can do. This is the least that I expect from activists in the West. Anything below that is irrelevant. It's really irrelevant. And so go destroy some factories. Go blockade shipping of the weapons. Get on the ships that are trying to bring weapons and tie yourself on them. There's a lot that could be done. Go and destroy those ships. So this is actually, action is what is needed. No more wars, no nothing. Today I woke up to the news of a Palestinian being lynched in Belgium, hung from a tree, okay, like strange fruit, right? Where those who are Zionists are doing their best to destroy the livelihood of, if not the life of, any Palestinian in the diaspora, not only on the ground, that is speaking out.
Any Muslim, any Arab.
Exactly. And anybody that stands with them, no matter what their ethnic, quote unquote, or cultural background is. So it's the time of action. And I would say people should throw out any anarchist ideas in their head if they want to organize like this, to take actions like these, anarchist open public meeting organizing. Might as well just go hand yourself over to the CIA and the government and put yourself in jail from the beginning. No, you have to organize in cell formations, 3 to 5 people, maximum 5 people, right? And people not knowing, if you bring in other people, then you break it down to more cells, and only different people know parts of what you're doing. Nobody should know. The only commitment should be that they're ready to risk their freedom for the liberation of Palestine. And then you move from there. They have to agree that they know that they're going to go to jail, get beaten up, and put in court for whatever they're going to do. And then you do the work. And I say this even from just experience of shutting down Netanyahu in the year 2002, which is coming up now, the 22-year anniversary. And on September 9th, 2002, we shut down Netanyahu at Concordia University. And the way we organized then was in cell formation. That was the only way it was successful. We knew that there was spies everywhere, infiltrators everywhere, including mostly from the quote-unquote left. that were trying to disrupt our work that we were doing. We had to get blueprints of the university buildings a month in advance and looked at every in and out. We had our sources. We worked clandestinely, even for just a shutdown of Netanyahu. We planned the day. I was one of the people in charge of one part of the demonstration, didn't even have any clue. We're not allowed to know what was happening on the other side of the building and what was organized for it. So that was a successful event. We shut down the building. We faced off with the Montreal police. We gave them the beating of their life, them and the Mossad and the, and where they, for 20 years after, they didn't dare come near a Palestinian demonstration. By the way, they didn't arrest anybody that day. There was like hundreds of injuries. Okay, they didn't arrest anybody. They were scared, the police. Now the Montreal demonstrations are getting beaten by the police because there's nobody that is organizing in this manner. They're not scared of a few kids on the street waving a few flags. They'll beat them up. The media is not even going to cover it.
Yeah, right. And I remember my grandfather telling me, my grandfather is Algerian. And I remember it once saying that we lost my dad lost 3 uncles in the Independence War. And I never forget my granddad saying that the only way you can be free as a people if you're willing to die. It's very simple. He said, you will not believe it. The only way you can be free is if you're willing to die. And if you're not, it's probably not going to be possible. And that's a very sobering message. I remember as a young kid, teenager, hearing that and thinking it's super, super sobering message. But when I think about it today, and I see just what the Western Empire is willing to do and inflict on people, and I include, of course, Israel. It's just this is pure insanity. This is worse than we all ever believed would be possible. And it's not even the end of it. They're talking about the nuclear weapons, what you said. I've been saying it all the time. The empire rather takes us all down with it than to let another one take over, like China. If I'm not the boss, then nobody's going to be the boss. You know, that kind of attitude. And I think the West, and in particular the United States and Israel, when they are really feeling they're on the losing end, they're willing to use nuclear weapons. I really think that is the case. And talking about Netanyahu, some people have expressed surprise that Israeli politicians have not been targeted at all. You know, while on the resistance side, many high figures have been assassinated. And that really gets a bit into the morality of this whole situation, Laith. How do you feel that contrast, you know, between the two sides? You have one side that really adheres to the rules of engagement and the side of the resistance, and then you have another side that employs tactics like genocide, rape, assassination, targeting civilians, spaces like schools, hospitals, universities, even sniping children. And despite this, the resistance continues waging what they view and what we also could actually view as a moral war, as a war that sticks to the rules of engagement. And yet the Western propaganda machine still portrays the West Asian resistance as savage, as those people are the terrorists, they are the savages. And I wonder, how do you see that? Do you feel that centuries of racism actually contributed to this perception that even though you have one side continuously abiding by the rules of engagement, still being seen by many people as the terrorists and the savages, while the other side is, in my opinion, by many people just still seen as the good guys? Would you say that it's rooted in racism and white supremacy? How would you see that?
Yeah, look, I would say the most important reason why the resistance is not, let's say, acting in the same way in terms of assassinations is because tactically assassinations do nothing strategically. In fact, assassinations present present you with a dilemma of having to know the new enemy, okay, and know their psychology and know their ways of thinking, and their reactions, how they react to things. So I think the resistance is happy with Netanyahu as he is, because we know him for 18 somewhat years as a leader of the Zionist colony. And they're very happy with people like Smotrich and Ben-Gvir that are fascist out in the open and all of this. This is perfect. The other thing, of course, in terms of acting humanely in general, this is the true Arabic way, and it's also the true Muslim way. And the empire and has been trying to mold a new Arabic person, a new Muslim, in the image of itself. Okay, it molded a new Jew, okay, in the image of imperialism. That's what Zionism is. And it wants to, for the last 100 years, also create that. And that part of it was, of course, the creation of the Wahhabi cult, the creation of the Arab Sheikh, oil, pedophile, misogynist, womanizer image. And all of that has been invested 100 years of propaganda into it, movies, TV shows,
yeah,
books,
Hollywood did a great job.
Everything, right? And so it is astonishing that the propaganda that the West pumped after October 7th, that it didn't have more damage, actually. And this is why. It's because the resistance itself had produced on that day images of its fighters going into colonist homes, and dealing with women and children nicely, giving them food, talking to them, telling them about their religion and culture, not allowing them to harm. Those were happening. If our viewers forgot this was, the videos are still out there. And the way that the Israeli POWs were treated and how they spoke after and so on. All of this was successful propaganda to demolish this fabricated Arabic person, this fabricated Muslim that the West was trying to present to the world. And I believe the vast majority of humanity, including people in the West, have now seen the light. And the West is not only losing this battle on the ground, they have right now lost the effectiveness of all of their media empire. They have exposed all of their media empire. Like there is no source right now in the West that can claim, let's say, the credibility that BBC had in the 80s or the 90s of the last century. They can't. There's nothing. Nobody believes in anything that is coming out, not only on the issue of Palestine. They've destroyed their ability to affect any other story because they were so blatant in their propaganda, in ugly propaganda that was not even crafty. So the resistance, I think, is very careful beyond the fact that it wants to follow the tenets of Islam in military battle, because ISIS and Al-Qaeda were doing the colonial tenets of war. Okay, you kill and you rape and you pillage. That's what the Western imperial power was built on. That was supposed to be the new Muslim. And thank God, if there's any, that the West was not successful to make that the new Muslim, like they were successful in making Zionists the new Jew.
Yeah, the bit about assassinations reminds me of an old War Nerd article about assassinations as human resources in reverse. Like a human resources department is trying to get the best people to move up the ladder. From the point of view of assassination as a military tactic, you're kind of doing the exact opposite. You're trying to get the least competent people to move up the ladder. So I can see the logic there. Like if there aren't any replacements that would be in any way, more favorable to a peace settlement, or worse, perhaps, someone who seems more reasonable, in his public persona or her public persona, but then will take essentially the same positions as a Netanyahu, then you can see the logic there. I wanted to just ask, actually, I meant to ask this at the last interview we did, but you just mentioned it again, propaganda. A lot of people, when they hear the word, they think it denotes something that is false and spread to achieve a political aim. But I think, as you know, the word propaganda, originally is just publicity. It's just, what we call PR now. So it doesn't have that connotation of something that's necessarily untrue. That's basically the way that you're using it, right? Like you use the word propaganda in its original sense as essentially PR, trying to educate people in such a manner that they take political action in accordance with what they've just been educated on, right?
Yes, definitely. I mean, it doesn't have any negative or positive impacts when you use the word propaganda. And the propaganda of the Palestinian resistance has been magnificent. So has been the propaganda of Hezbollah. Producing these videos every day under these conditions and creating these iconic moments right now that are etched in the triangle now is, it's like the creation of the peace symbol as a propaganda device during the anti-Vietnam War, right? So you have right now the red triangle is a symbol that is now known on a global scale. Probably every little guy in a very small village knows what the red triangle means. This is why it's now banned in Germany. Okay, so the propaganda of the whole axis of resistance, specifically that coming from the war front and the citizen media distributed on social media platforms. Those two, along with the speeches of Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah, I think are 90% of the success of any content produced that is against the genocide in Gaza. And these operational videos and citizen videos and the speeches of Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah are worth all the propaganda machine of the West combined have defeated the whole Western propaganda machine combined. And that is I think a historic, again, success that is unmatched. I mean, I remember hearing President Putin saying it's a fool's errand to get into a propaganda war with the US because it owns all this.
He said it's cost prohibitive.
Yes. So right now we see how you can defeat the propaganda machine of the empire, and it's dependent, number one, on the total mobilization of the people, right? If not every Palestinian and every Lebanese, whatever, no matter where they are in the world, was tweeting constantly, you need a full mobilization of people. The people have to enroll in the war effort, the propaganda war effort. And they did it willingly. They did it for free, voluntarily. You didn't have to pay anybody. And the Zionists are rushing to pay millions of dollars for people to sit behind computers and control bots for them and troll people. It's cost prohibitive, and you can imagine you have to do it in all the languages in the world. The Zionists have right now are depleting not only the weapons of the West, they're depleting the whole propaganda machine of the West also.
I just wanted to follow up on that real quick. What evidence do we have that the propaganda war is really being lost by the U.S. and its clients? Because I can see in the U.S. public opinion polls, like certainly a majority of Democrat-leaning people have expressed opposition to U.S. policy, Israeli policy. And I think certainly younger people, regardless of partisan identification, take the same position. But when I go and visit my conservative family, who just they watch like Fox every now and then, and they'll read their right wing email list stuff. They're completely still in a bubble. Like they have no idea of 1% of what your average anti-genocide protester knows, and which pushed them to become an opponent to genocide. So what evidence is there to back up the belief that the U.S., Israeli, European propaganda war is actually being lost by them?
Yeah, I mean, the surveys of everywhere outside the U.S. in the West show us a absolute majority, 60, 70% of populations in major countries like Canada, Australia, others in Europe are anti the genocide. They want to stop it, and they are pro-Palestinian. There's even we saw, I think, surveys of US youth with a plurality of US youth say Israel doesn't have the right to exist. Okay, so I think these are number one. If this is coming out from survey companies that are imperialist and controlled by the CIA and others, that's what survey companies are, then what is the real truth? I think the truth is even more than that. The problem, I think, that is making us question the opinions of the population in the West is that nobody's taking action. And there's where the problem lies. We are not feeling the true sentiment of the people because nobody's taking action. And those demonstrations are demoralizing, actually, more than anything, because they show how no matter what you do, non-violently, the political class in the West is not willing to follow the opinions of the populace. Look at France, what's happening right now. It's 2 months of refusing to appoint a government. Why? Because of Palestine. As simple as that. A democratically elected, if there is a democracy, I don't believe there's a democracy, but even in this system, is not allowed to govern. We'll see where the birthplace of Western democracy goes, and I think it's all going. Now, the action is what is needed. I also want to say one last thing about the opinions of the West and the audience in the West is actually they're irrelevant to me as a Palestinian. I can warn Americans that they've lost quote unquote rights, which I don't think they even had before. They've never been tested, those rights that they claim they had, like freedom of speech. Now we see them really tested. But we are going to liberate Palestine with or without the Western populace doing anything about it. And if the Western populace wants to liberate themselves, that's a great thing. Otherwise, I don't care. After 100 years of seeing mass death in the Arabic world, just to maintain this shitty colony, I don't care about the fate of the American populace. I actually wish them that they taste the same medicine, that poison that we've been eating here for the last 100 years.
Yeah, I just shared my Substack with you because that was exactly what I had been talking about the fact that so people are being arrested now. Richard Medhurst and the Cradle is being deplatformed, and that is because one of the most powerful, I think, tools the resistance has is to get out the truth, and this has completely changed the view of the people in Arab resistance and countries in West Asia in general. And that's also why I have one subtitle: "Humanizing Arabs is an existential threat to empire." It's very simple, like you said. And when you talk about the leadership in Saudi Arabia, for example, that's the perfect Hollywood stereotype that is in power. That's the perfect Hollywood stereotype, and you can just, as the West, you can just prop that up as the prime example of Arabism, so to speak. And I've always been so surprised at the fact that there are so many people willing in the Arab world, willing to become living expressions of Western stereotypes just for money. You know what I mean, Laith?
Yes, yes, yes. We brought up also before the Algerian independence, you know, the day the World War II ended, Algerian people stood up and asked for their freedom. And in a few days, 200,000 Algerians were genocided by the French the next day after the end of World War II. You know, and nobody cried for them. You know, actually, like Simone de Beauvoir and Sartre and all of these icons of liberation and liberalism and whatever in the West all stood against Algerian liberation. And you know, hundreds of Algerians were thrown in the Seine River. Algerian citizens of France that were demonstrating against the genocide in Algeria were thrown in the Seine River after being tortured and killed in the stadium in Paris. Okay. So, and 6 million Algerians died in the 160 years of occupation.
And
by
not
the
just
French
that,
too.
Not just that, my grandfather fought for the French in the Second World War.
Yes, those Algerians that fought with the French in the Second World War and stood up the day at the end of the war, that's who they got killed. Okay. And 2 million Algerians died in the War of Liberation. You know that. So, did that humanize, by the way, the Algerians? You see, look, it didn't, of course. I don't need to be humanized by the white man, the imaginary white man. I know that I am a human, and this is what we have to, you have to force your humanity, you know, and where your enemy gets to a point where they cannot deny your humanity because you'll beat the hell out of them. They can't do it. And that's what, you know, has to happen right now. The West has to get a whipping and to end this 600 years of white supremacy. If they look, the Arabic diaspora populations by the beginning of the 2000s, especially in Europe and Canada and Australia and what have you, were getting to a numerical point where regular day-to-day life means that they were going to be integrated, going to be married with, you know, cross-married with so many other people in positions of culture and arts and politics and everything. that it was a threat to Zionists. And that is why the Zionists and the CIA ordered the Saudis, intelligence, and the quote-unquote Al-Qaeda, the chameleon, to deliver us September 11. Okay. And from, and you had a decade of exclusion of the Arabic and Muslim community and a delay of their natural integration. And when that died out, the effect of that, again, the CIA and the Mossad and so on moved their Wahhabi death squads and brought us ISIS and the death fields and the slave markets in Libya, Syria, Iraq, and again delayed the integration of the Arabic and Muslim diasporas. Another decade. And now today, that is dying out. What we see right now is the Israelis and the Americans, the West in general, trying to revive this, this ideal Arab, this ideal Muslim that they wanted to create as a scarecrow against not only our people here, but also the integration of the diasporas. And it's not working. It's not working for the vast majority of people. They're seeing the actual monster devouring children live on television that is called Israel.
But it's still, in my opinion, and I do agree with you, it's incredibly effective now, all the counter narratives that come from West Asia, and especially from the Palestinian resistance. But I still must say, Laith, there are surprisingly large amount of people still unwilling to accept that Arabs are humans. I mean, I come from a small country, the Netherlands, and the amount of people who, after almost a year of genocide, still keep going, almost like it's an addiction. This racism against Arabs, it's like an addiction. People don't want to let go. How they still keep going. So many people dehumanizing Arabs, Muslims. You put on the television, you read the newspaper. I've always said, like, racism is one hell of a drug, man. People just don't want to let go. Many people just don't want to let go, and they will let children die. They will let women get raped. They will let everything, all the terrible things happen, as long as they can keep their racism. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Look, I mean, the thing about Western identity, the white identity that we see as manufactured, the kind of hate it has towards Arabs and by extension Muslims is because Arabs and their ancestors were the first other, okay, that the European man faced when stepping outside of Europe. I mean, Edward Said, of course, tells us in Orientalism about this in detail. But what we are living right now is this continuation of this idea that the West Europeans come into Greater Syria region, North Africa and Western Asia, and loot the culture, not only the land and the resources, loot the culture, loot Judaism, loot Christianity, and loot our alphabet, loot our bread and make it pizza. And then to play pretend Arab, pretend Semite, okay, claim that Europeans are the Judeo-Christian civilization. I'm like, what the hell, mofo? The Judeo-Christian Muslim civilization is me and my people, right? And so the problem that we're facing here is very deep because we are hitting at the pillars of what keeps this fake identity standing. If they cannot claim the Greek alphabet, which is a morphing of the Aramaic alphabet, the Canaanite alphabet, or they can't claim the Christianity and Judaism, then who are they? Where did they get culture from? Where did they start? How can they define themselves as a people? And they can't. They have to go back to, like the Nazis decided, to go back to Wiccanism and Viking mythology, right? That's the only thing that the Nazis were right about. Actually, that's their culture. It's not Christianity.
I wrote an article about that, actually. I wrote an article about that. I said, if you want to understand Western civilization, just look at the celebration of Vikingism in Western culture. Yeah. Peter, yeah?
Yeah, just to correct, I think like if you what's the word for a verbal typo? When you said Sartre didn't support the Algerians, I think Sartre openly supported the FLN, but there were probably like a million French liberal intellectuals at the time who didn't, make a peep. But just for any Sartre fans out there, or else maybe he changed his mind at some point. But I know that later he was an open, notorious supporter of the FLN.
Yeah, I think I was also thinking at the same time, too fast in my head, about Edward Said's moment with, I don't know if people have read that. There was written about the moment that Edward Said met Sartre and Simone de Beauvoir, and what's the third guy? And how they were anti-Palestinian, and all of them being Zionist also. So I just, in my head, I was thinking two things at the same time, and I mixed it up. Yeah.
So we're at, oh shoot, we're at an hour now. Is there anything that you would recommend viewers to read?
And plug anything you want to plug. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would be great, for our viewers to donate to Free Palestine, the video. We're right now launched a new show called Prisoners of War, Palestinian POWs Speak. We're filming inside the West Bank, Palestinian prisoners of war that are getting released, and doing interviews with them so people can get to know their stories. We're also launching another unit in the West Bank to film in news pieces about the actions and the attacks in the West Bank. We're doing the translation of all operation videos of the Axis of Resistance, and we're continuing doing the reporting here from Lebanon. Please donate, subscribe for monthly donations. FreePalestine.video is the website, and you can find all our socials there.
Okay, great, Laith. Yeah, you're doing a very essential work, and I can advise everybody to follow you, and also regularly Google your name in YouTube, and then click latest, and then you see the latest interviews with Laith. I always follow them. It's super crucial information, and fantastic stuff. So very happy you were with us again, and we're definitely going to invite you again to update us. And for now, thank you very much, and see you soon.
See you soon, guys.
See you.
Bye.